Good evening and welcome to the regular briefing meeting of the Kernersville Board of Aldermen. It is now Wednesday, August 26th at 6:30 p.m. and we will be going through the briefing agenda and the regular meeting agenda. You can watch this meeting, of course, live from the council chambers tonight on Zoom or YouTube, and it'll be available later. All right, so we'll begin this evening with a call to order and the invocation, which will be led by our Community Development Director, Mr. Jeff Hatling. Mr. Hatling.
Thank you, Mayor Morgan. Let's bow our heads. Lord, thank you for blessing us with this evening to be together to conduct the business of the town of Kernersville, and blessing us with this opportunity to be a part of this community. Guide everybody who participates, and we pray for those out there in trouble. And most of all, Lord, we pray that you continue to guide us and guide us to live through you. And these things we pray. Amen.
Thank you, Mr. Hatling. And now we will have the Pledge of Allegiance. We are often very happy to have Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts come to our meeting and lead the pledge. And this is being led by Blaine Thompson.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so we will begin with the briefing on the September 1, 2020 regular meeting agenda. I did have a request to amend the agenda to include a resolution declaring property surplus and authorizing disposal. It is the situation where when we have a police officer retire, we often will give them their badge and their service sidearm. And so this is for Officer Clinton Queen, who's retiring in October. So do I have a motion to amend the agenda to include this?
So moved.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
before we do this, you should call the roll for the board members.
Oh, okay, very well. I will go ahead and do that first then. All right, since this is a remote meeting, I will call a roll. I think in a lot of these online meetings, it's gotten to be customary to just see everyone's image and call the roll by that way. But we have been keeping a record of that, and so I will do that now. Thank you to our town clerk. So Alderman Bruce Boyer.
Present.
Thank you. Alderman Kenny Cruz.
Present.
Thank you. Alderman Chris Thompson.
Present.
Thank you. Alderman Joe Penix.
Present.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Jenny Fulton is not able to join us tonight, so she will not be in attendance at this meeting. I see many of our staff on the call or the conference. Town Manager Curtis Swisher.
Present.
Thank you. Town Attorney John Wolf.
Present.
Thank you. Town Clerk Keith Hooker, I already spoke with. IT Director Adam Hutchins is here. Our Fire Rescue Chief Scott Alderman.
Present.
Thank you. Our Police Chief Tim Summers.
He's in the audience.
Okay, thank you. Our Public Services Director Doran Malta.
Present.
Thank you. Our Human Resources Director is Crystal Tanner. Is she here?
She's in the courtroom.
She is.
Thank you. And then Community Development Director Jeff Hatling is here. He gave the invocation. Who else from our staff is on the call, Mr. Swisher?
Franz Ader, Finance Director, is in the courtroom. And I think Ernie Pages or someone from Parks and Recreation is on the call.
Ernie, are you on the call? Can you hear me?
Actually, he is not.
Okay. So is there anyone else on the call that I've missed?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, I'm gonna check and see who's listed. And I do not see anyone else other than those who've responded. Okay, very good. Thank you, everyone. All right, so we will begin then with item 1, which is the briefing on the September 1, 2020 regular meeting agenda. And the town clerk had asked me to present that we add an agenda item. Mr. Hooker, what item would you recommend adding this as?
Madam Mayor, I would recommend adding it as the last item in the public session, which would make that item J.
Okay. Okay, so I'd like to get a motion to add to the agenda in the public session as item J, a resolution declaring. All right, Alderman Boyer has made the motion, and this is relating to the badge and sidearm for a retiring police officer, Miss Clint Queen. All right, got a motion by Alderman Boyer. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Alderman Kenny Cruz, and we will do our vote by roll call. Alderman Bruce Boyer, how do you vote?
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Cruz?
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Thompson?
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Penix?
In favor.
Thank you. All right, so that will be added to the agenda. All right, so going through the agenda. Now, if citizens would like to comment on an item in the agenda or on the public hearing, you may do so by email to khooker@toknc.com. If you'd like to speak at the meeting, there's a phone number to call in. That number is 336-996-7289. If an item is a public hearing, we accept comments 24 hours after the close of the public hearing. Those comments could also be submitted to Keith Hooker at khooker@toknc.com. All right, so the agenda, we'll go over item 1A is a public hearing on the proposed financing of equipment and improvements to the new Kernersville Lake Dam and to roofs of the Morris House in Kernersville Museum in consideration of a resolution approving the contract. Mr. Swisher, if you could tell us a little bit more about this item.
Madam Mayor and Board, you have a memo in your packet that details out the financing. We put it out to bid. We requested bids from 14 different lenders, and we received 4 bids back to finance those items. We are recommending that the board approve the contract with Truist Bank. Interest rate is 1.68%. They were the low bidder. We've also done business with them in the past on many different loans for the town, so we are recommending that we go with them for that contract.
Does anyone have any questions of Mr. Swisher on this item?
No, thank you.
And given this is a briefing meeting, we're hearing just brief overviews and asking questions, and then we'll actually take the vote at our regular meeting. Alderman Cruz, if you could mute your microphone. I think your microphone and Curtis's are crossing over.
Mute your microphone.
Did that go?
That's perfect. Thank you. All right, the next item would be our public session with speakers from the floor. We'll have a preliminary subdivision room review as item B of the Stonehaven subdivision. Mr. Hatling, if you'd like to speak to that.
Yes, this is a preliminary subdivision review. This is not a public hearing, but it will be a public session. In the packet, you'll see the planning board report, and we'll also be adding a couple memos on that packet item regarding traffic and stormwater. There was one concern at the planning board from an adjacent property owner of some undersized piping at her home. The developer has met with the adjacent property owner, and they're going to resolve that issue and correct that stormwater. So there was 2 people who spoke in opposition to the project. One was the adjacent property owner, The other one who spoke is a spokesman for the neighborhood, and I'm assuming he will also speak again. I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
So, this is not the usual way things present, Mr. Hatling. Typically, subdivisions present as a public hearing. How is the determination made which cases that are subdivision review go to the Board of Aldermen, or which ones are determined by a final decision by the planning board?
Yes, most of the subdivisions where we review are special use districts. They're asking for rezoning, and in that rezoning special use district, they're submitting their subdivision for review. In this case, this is just an administrative review. They are not asking for rezoning. This is an RS20 zone property, and they're proposing to keep it RS20 with no PRD provision. So this is just a regular subdivision that requires no public hearing, just under a public session.
Are there any special considerations of items that the board should look at when they're considering item 2B?
No, I have 2 drafted memos that I will have the clerk post on the agenda regarding the traffic concerns in the Chelsea neighborhood, and also the update on the stormwater with the good news that the developer and adjacent property owner has worked that out.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone have any questions of Mr. Hatling about item 2B, the preliminary subdivision review of Stonehaven?
Jeff, the connection with Chelsea Place Drive, there's a longer section of Chelsea Place and a shorter section, and there's a stub street separating the two. Is that where the connection would be?
Correct. Hollow Creek Lane is the connection to Stonehaven.
Right. Okay. Because Hollow Creek Lane ends, and then across the street is what is now a stub street.
Correct. Correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Are there any other questions?
I think Kenny has a
Do,
question.
how about the entrance? Will there be an entrance out on county line, or is it coming back through the development?
Yes, there'll be a separate entrance on County Line Road. That'll be their primary subdivision interest as they build out the subdivision. So they'll be coming off County Line Road. This will be a NCDOT streets. This is outside of our sewered area. It's in our ETJ, and since we cannot sewer the area, there's no annexation being required, and so the public streets will be NCDOT if they accept them.
Are there any other questions? I saw Chris nod his head no. Joe, do you have any other questions? Okay, all right. Then thank you, Mr. Hatling. We'll move on to item 2C, consideration of a resolution to adopt the Northern Piedmont Hazard Mitigation Plan. Mr. Swisher?
Madam Mayor, this is a plan that was created through the efforts of several different counties in the Northern Piedmont region: Caswell, Davie, Forsyth, Rockingham, Stokes, Surrey, and Yadkin counties. We're all on the committee that created this hazard mitigation plan. The purpose of the plan is basically exactly what it says, is to mitigate any future hazards that may arise. It's done through emergency management as well as the state emergency management. And so we're required to adopt this plan to remain part of that. I think the plan itself, I think they started work on it in late 2018, 2019. So August Vernon from Forsyth County Emergency Management will also be at the meeting, or will be on the call, so he can answer any questions, in-depth questions the board may have regarding the plan as well. And as Chief Alderman can also answer any questions the board may have.
Chief Alderman, have you had a chance to review this plan?
Mayor, I just received access to it today, and just started my review of it, but, it's pretty similar to the previous plan. They did add a couple of items in regards to, technological hazards. And, there was one other item that, emergency management was telling me about, but I plan to continue to, do my review of that plan. That way, when we meet again, next week, if y'all have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them as well.
Okay, thank
Just
you.
please let us know, Chief, in advance, if you had any concerns.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir.
Okay, any other questions? All right, then we will move on to item D, consideration of a resolution setting the public hearing for a voluntary annexation petition by Averitt Properties, Inc. for property located at 214 and 216 South Bunker Hill Road, containing 1.292 acres more or less.
Mayor Morgan, these are two small former residential lots that were purchased by Averitt Trucking to expand the Triad Business Park. Staff is recommending that we move ahead with the annexation procedures on these two lots.
And this would be Triad Business Park.
Right, Triad Business Park, correct.
Okay. All right, any questions of Mr. Hatling? All right. Item E is consideration of an ordinance declaring the dwelling at 212 Smith Street vacant and closed.
Madam Mayor, this is a property that our enforcement division through community development has been trying to get the property owner to clean up and to bring up to code. They've not been successful in doing so. The next step is for the board to declare that property vacant and closed. We will then post it as uninhabitable, at which time the property owner will be given 1 year to bring that property up to code. And if they do not, then the town will take further action and demolition of the property. And Jeff Atlee can also give the board some more information on that, as his department has been the one working through the process.
Mr. Hatling?
Yes, Curtis summarized it very well.
So would the property be boarded up against vagrants and trespassers after this?
Actually, the main window in the front of the house is already boarded up. And there's graffiti on the side of the house facing the road.
Yeah, this would be similar. Our last case we had on a case like this was a Ballard house out on Union Cross Road. And so we'll continue to monitor it for safety and compliance and, follow the resolution that's in front of you or ordinance in front of you.
Okay. All right, anybody else have any questions? All right. Item F is consideration of a revised agreement for fire protection services with the town of Walkertown.
Madam Mayor, we currently have an agreement with the town of Walkertown to provide fire suppression services in an area on West Mountain Street, basically from Tally's Crossing to Johnson Controls, almost all the way to Linville Road. We provide fire services in that area. We were approached by Walkertown. They asked if we would be able to provide inspections and what's the other one, Chief? Inspections and what's the other service? Investigation. 2 eyes in that area as well. Chief and I have met. Chief's talked with Walkertown. We're recommending that the town take that up and do that for Walkertown as well. We've revised the contract. It was, I think, $8,000 or $9,000 for fire protection services, and it is now the $18,000 to include investigations and inspections.
Okay, any questions? All right, item H is the first reading of the taxi franchise ordinance renewal.
This is for Oak Ridge Cab Company. He is currently the only cab company operating in Kernersville, I do believe. His
First.
franchise runs out at the end of September or at the end of August, maybe the end of September. But it will be for a three-year period with a 3-year renewable term as well. Same requirements as before with his franchise, so nothing has changed in that. He submitted his application. He submitted his hours of that he proposes to operate, and the other items that we require to be submitted for that franchise. He's done a good job. We've not had any issues with him, so we are recommending a reapproval of that franchise agreement.
Does anyone have any questions? All right,
Madam Mayor.
let's
I think you missed item
back
G.
up a minute. Yeah, let's back up a minute and do
Thank
item
you.
G. We do this frequently. We do resolutions declaring property surplus and authorizing electronic auction. Is there anything special about this particular one, Mr. Swisher?
No, ma'am. It's just standard equipment that we need to get rid of if the board so chooses to declare a surplus, and we will auction it off.
Okay,
And
any
it will be
questions?
auctioned through gov deals as we've done
Okay.
previous equipment.
Does anyone have any questions? All right, we'll move on to I then. The agreement for architectural services at Beeson's Crossroads Fire Station.
As the board is aware, we have been working with Beeson's Fire Station to possibly house Station 44 in that station. That would require some modifications to the station, would require some modifications to be made. They've done a rough design, but it was a very rough design. Will not allow us to get a cost for those modifications. So as with any building that we've done in the past, whether it be Fire Station 42, Public Services, we've also went through it with the Parks and Recreation, the proposed building there. We need to go out and have a building designed, have an architect do that. This one is a little different in the sense that Beeson's Crossroads Fire Department would be the one obtaining those services, but through a future agreement that we would have with them, we would also contribute to the cost of that construction. So this agreement allows for the town to pay for those architectural services as we would for a town building. But the key point in it is if Beeson's decides in the future to not follow through with the agreement and allow us to house our staff and equipment in that fire station, they would then reimburse us the $25,000 for the architectural services. So we would pay for it, and then if something happened and the future agreements were not adopted, and that was because of something on their side, we would be reimbursed for it. Once the architectural work is done, we can then bring the Board of Aldermen back an agreement that states how that cohabitation would work, also the cost of the building for renovations.
All right, does anyone have any questions?
And this makes it possible that we don't have to build another fire station to service that side of town.
Yes,
Am I
sir.
correct?
If the Board of Aldermen enters into the future agreement to house our staff and our people, and our staff and our equipment in that building, then we would not need to build another station on that end of town. We currently have Station 44 is currently there in front of Caleb's Creek Elementary. That's the staff and the equipment that will move to Beeson's Fire Station. We also currently have some land on Tig Lane for a new fire station, but it has some challenges as far as response time goes to some areas in town. The Beeson's Fire Station does not have those challenges. So if the board follows through and we move into that station, I think staff would recommend selling both the current station in front of Caleb's Creek, as well as the land maybe for the future station. We would definitely recommend selling the current station And we would research a little bit more about the land for the future station.
All right, so then we'll move on to, is there any further questions first?
Thank you.
Okay, and Mr. Hooker, if you could mute your microphone, please. All right, we'll move on then to the consent agenda, which is item A, approval of minutes for the July 29 briefing. Item B, approval of minutes for the August 5 regular meeting. Item C is consideration of a lease with the Kernersville Little Theater for the Harmon Park building. Mr. Swisher, would you like to address that item?
Yes, ma'am. This is the building that you see right in front of Harmon Park. It's right beside of the gazebo. The Little Theater has leased that building from the town for many years. It's a one-year lease beginning October 5th, 2020, and then October 4th, 2021. Same terms as previous leases. We see no problem with releasing that building to them for the purpose of using it for their office.
Okay, any questions? All right. So the next item is item D, consideration of an ordinance for temporary road closings for the downtown trick or treat. My understanding from talking with representatives of the Chamber and Parks and Rec that it is a different event than in the planning than it has been in past years. Unless Ernie has joined the call again, Mr. Swisher, do you want to address this agenda item?
Yes, it is a little bit different event. And honestly, I think we're all still kind of working out the details of that event, but we need to go ahead and get the board to approve closure of the road so that we can send that information to DOT. You see in your packet that it's Main Street from Railroad Street to Harmon Lane. That's where it has been in the past. And then Mountain Street from Cherry Street to Broad Street. So about the same parameters as before. The event may look a little different. Like I said earlier, we're still working on that, but if we get the road closed and then something happens and we can't have the event, of course, we just won't close the road. So, but we need to go ahead and get that because of the time period, the time frame they give you to get that information to DOT.
I see that Chris Comer has just joined the call. Chris, would you like to speak to the downtown trick or treat and the request to the DOT to close the road?
Sure. Let me adjust real quick. All right. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
All right. Yes, this is going to be a reverse type of trick or treat where the businesses will be out on the curb and the children will be in their cars, and the parents will funnel from South Main, take a right onto East Mountain, go up Railroad, come down North Main, take a right onto West Mountain, and funnel out. That's where we are with this.
Can you repeat the path of the cars again?
Yes. The cars would start on South Main Street. They would take a right onto East Mountain, take a left onto Railroad, take a left onto North Main, take a right onto West Mountain, and then they would funnel out from there and go in the direction that they need to go home.
Thank you. A lot of planning is going into this, I can tell.
It is, and if anyone has any questions at all, we can answer them now, or I can have conversations with each of you. We're just very appreciative that you're considering this.
Does anyone have questions of Ms. Comer at this point in time?
After so many things have been canceled, I think it's great to have a plan to try and do something.
When you get the plans finalized, it might be a good thing to present at the October meeting so that there's opportunity to help
Absolutely.
spread the word. Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Can you put us on the agenda for that October meeting?
Yes,
Thank you very much.
you're welcome. Mr. Hooker, if you can make a note to add that to the October agenda.
Got it.
Thank you. All right. Curtis, is there anything you'd like to add as far as any of the items that are listed on the consent agenda?
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. All right, so then we'll have the speakers from the floor at the meeting, which can be people who've called in. It can be written comments submitted in advance to khooker@toknc.com, or you can present from Town Hall. All right, matters to be presented at the meeting by the town manager. Curtis, do you know of any?
Not as of right now, no.
Okay, matters to be presented at the regular meeting by our town attorney, Mr. Wolf. Mr. Wolf, do you know of any you're planning to bring up on Tuesday night?
Yes, ma'am. If I might explain now, and I will either bring this up as a completed contract or will enumerate the terms of a contract to be entered into for the board's consideration and potential approval. As the board knows, we've been discussing, and it's been determined by the board that it wishes to purchase approximately 13.5 acres of property off of Beeson Road across from the park, and that to be purchased from the Beeson heirs. They're represented by Scott Beeson, and the purchase price is to be $350,000. We were going to enter into, as discussed with the board at closed session, and agreed by the board, an option. As we got into this, I felt like an option is just going to be redoing something, having the option first and then turning right around and having a contract. And so I've decided to work on a contract. We're getting the full names of the individuals, beginning to search title. As I say, this would be for $350,000 and would be $10,000 as a good faith deposit. We would enter into it with the Beeson heirs and would work out a time closing that would be on or before, if I can find what we came up with. I'll give you that proposal as of Tuesday night. It will be a very standard, straight contract for raw property. No improvements to that property. There are a couple things we do need to find out about. That's one of those is about the corn that's been growing there and the lease, I guess, of that property up to this point and how long that lasts. And we'll have to make provision for that within the contract. But I will bring this up if I can put it together beforehand. I will send it to you, Mayor, and the board beforehand to be looking over. But in any event, I'll bring it up on Tuesday night for the board's consideration. I think it's the wiser way to go rather than going through an option and then turning right around and preparing this kind of document and offer to purchase and contract in the future. Be glad to answer any questions that you might have.
Mr. Wolf, we appreciate the work you've put into that that issue. I do have a question though. Would you like to add that as a regular agenda item?
It
As
certainly
maybe, as
certainly
maybe
could.
item K? Okay. Do I
Certainly
have a
could be at
motion
this point,
to
yes.
add that?
So moved.
Okay, Alderman Thompson, do I have a second? This would, all
I'll second.
right, thank you, Alderman Cruz. So we'll do a roll call vote. All those in favor, Alderman Bruce Boyer, how do you vote?
In favor of having it on the agenda?
Thank you, Alderman Cruz.
In favor, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Thompson.
In favor.
Thank you. Alderman Penix.
In favor.
Thank you. So Mr. Hooker, if you could add this as agenda item, we've added item J, so this would be item K. And again, thank you, Mr. Wolf, for all of your work in regard to this matter. We certainly appreciate your efforts and your service to the town.
Certainly, and I thank you. I appreciate that. And to let you know, I have talked with Scott Beeson, who represents the heirs. And so he and I will be getting back together, hopefully before your meeting on Tuesday, and I'll have it in contract form, but I won't promise that. I'm not sure that Scott will get back to me by then.
Certainly. Do you have anything else you'd like to bring up to us tonight that you're planning to discuss at the meeting?
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. All
Sure.
right, so then we'll have matters to be presented at the meeting by myself or the alderman. And that concludes our agenda. Although I will note that the agenda shows an adjournment. And typically what we have done with remote meetings is we continued the meeting in order to vote on the public hearing at a minimum of 24 hours after the close of the public hearing. So we would anticipate likely continuing or recessing the meeting to allow a later vote on the item 1A, which is a public hearing. Any questions on that or any further comment on that? All right, then we're back to the agenda for the briefing session. We're to item 2, matters to be presented tonight by the mayor and board of aldermen. I'll start with Mr. or Alderman Boyer. Do you have anything to present this evening?
No, nothing new. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Cruz.
No, ma'am, not tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Alderman Thompson.
No, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Penix.
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Let's see. Now we're to matters to be presented tonight by the town manager and town attorney. Mr. Swisher, do you have anything this evening?
No, ma'am.
Thank you. Mr. Wolf?
Just a real fast one. Please excuse my wife from passing back and forth behind me, preparing dinner.
Hi, Bobby.
Hey, Bobby.
Hello, everyone.
We'll be right out.
The other matters, sometimes you're really touched by a gift from someone. And I've been touched today by receiving a gift from Alderman Cruz, who has sent me a very special signed, autographed picture of 2 individuals, and he's beginning to smile. And I do thank you so very much for this, which is my very own autographed copy from, and it says to John Wolf, from Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. And Kenny, thank you very, very much. That means a great deal to me. It will sit here right on my desk from now until November 3rd. That's all, Mayor.
Okay, if there's no further business before the board, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
I'll second Chris's motion.
Alderman Thompson, have a second by Alderman Boyer. We will need to do a roll call vote. Alderman Bruce Boyer, how do you vote?
In favor of adjourning?
Thank you. Alderman Cruz.
In favor, thank you, of adjourning.
Thank you. Thank you. Alderman Thompson.
In favor.
Thank you. Alderman Penix.
In favor.
Thank you. And just before we go, just want to express my appreciation again to our town manager, Curtis Swisher, our IT director, Adam Hutchins, our personnel director, Crystal Tanner, and everybody working together to help us have these successful remote meetings. We really appreciate everyone coming up the technology curve, and getting the things in place we need to do this successfully, and we do appreciate that effort. If there's no further business before the board,